get this when you go to Thanksgiving or some family gathering, say, what's wrong with education? I heard they're doing education reform. Is that going to work? I think one of the issues with that question and education reform in general, as it's ebbed and flowed throughout the decades, is education reform. Let's change everything. Not, right? There's some really great things happening. There's some really passionate people working on difficult problems. But there's still something, isn't there? There's something happening in your local context that isn't quite right, and you think you could fix it, or you wouldn't be in a leadership position, and you definitely wouldn't be here trying to become a better leader. So there's this little thing that's off. You're not ready to raise the big flag on it. Something's wrong. I call that defining the dissonance. Can you define your dissonance? Welcome to PBL Simplified for Leaders, where we help you take your vision off of the page and into your school. I'm going to help distill leadership ideas from education, business, and sports so that you can be the leader your building needs you to be. Today on PBL Simplified for Leaders, we're talking about defining the dissonance. The dissonance is just that thing that's just a little bit off. But once you can identify the dissonance with these three key questions, you'll be able to lead stronger. So the first question in defining the dissonance is, can you feel it? And notice I use the word dissonance. I don't say what's wrong, right? We're not trying to identify things that are wrong. And that's difficult in education, is because all of your teachers are passionate. Their lives and their spirits are in this work. So when we say it's wrong, it starts to rub things the wrong way and appropriately. But let's define the dissonance. What does that mean? Really, it's a musical term, right? So listen to these chords as they play. See if you can figure out where the dissonance is. Those sound all right. Ooh. Ah. I'm no Mozart, but something's a little bit off. Could you hear the difference between the two? Even if you don't know music, if you're not a musical person, which I'm not, I can definitely tell the difference in between those chords. Now, I can't tell you even how to fix it. I can't tell you what was different in the first and then in the second version, but I know something's wrong. Something's different in there. So that's what I look at defining the dissonance in education. Like, we know there are a lot of good things happening, but we also know there's something that's not quite right. Like, when you look at graduation rates from college, 50% of our kids are going to college and coming back without a degree, but with debt. It's hard to define what that looks like, but I know something's not quite right. How do you define what that means in K-12? Did we do it wrong? There's so many different variables. I don't know, but there's a dissonance in there. So the first question you want to really just identify is, can you feel the dissonance? And then you want to define that. What is it for your local area? Because right now you're probably like, well, Ryan, will tell me what the dissonance is and I'll fix it. Because you're a leader and you're a go-getter. You do these things, right? But I can't define your dissonance. It's different. Whether you're a large district in Indianapolis or a small charter school in Florida or a district working through this work in Missouri, your dissonance is different. So you need to figure out your local dissonance and define it in some way, because that's what leaders do. You need to define that dissonance so that you can get to this second question, is how can I fix the dissonance? The first thing you'll do is define it. The second is you start to wonder, what can I do as a leader? I believe the number one thing you can do is get better as a leader. That's why this series is here, and we're going to do some book studies. We're going to go through different ideas, again, in education, business, and sports, so that you can become a better leader. If you're a better leader, you can launch that vision, you can lead people in that direction, then you are going to solve your local dissonance, even if you don't define it well, honestly. I think if you can lead to your best ability and then up that ability each year, then you're going to be leading people in the right direction. The third question you should ask is, how can we solve the dissonance? Don't do this alone. Leadership is not a solo sport. If you're the best leader ever, number one, you won't be by yourself. But number two, it doesn't matter. You don't get points for leadership. You get points when people are following you and you've multiplied your impact. So how do you get your teachers involved in defining this dissonance? Again, you don't say something's wrong with what we're doing. That's why at Magnify Learning, it's called Magnify Learning, not Replace Learning. We work with schools all over the country, and our first message in is very different than most organizations. We don't say you should change and go to project-based learning. We say you're doing really great things. Let's take those really great things and magnify them with project-based learning. There's a huge difference there. Your teachers are working very hard. Now, we've got to make sure that they're moving in the right direction and that they're using best practices. That's your job as the leader. So how do you get your staff to start looking for the dissonance? First, again, maybe you define it for them, but even better, how do you help them define it? Maybe it's a quick Google form of, what do you think we could do better here? 2 questions. And then you need to have the third question of, how do you think we can solve these? Because no one's ever allowed to just give a problem and walk out of your office. You can come in with problems, but you also need to bring a solution. Even if it's not the solution, you've got to bring a solution. We're not just complaining here. So how can we define that dissonance and start to bring some solutions? Find different ways to invite your staff. Maybe it's a chalk talk at the end of one of your professional developments. Again, maybe it's a Google form, maybe it's an exit ticket. You're not trying to get people to grumble. You're trying to get people to say, how can we get better? And then you're going to start to bring solutions. So when you first start out to define that dissonance, can you hear it? Can you define it yourself? Can you come up with solutions for you to fix it as the leader? And then can you bring your staff in to help define the dissonance and start to move towards fixing it? As you do this, you'll find that you'll engage your learners, you'll tackle boredom, and you'll transform your classrooms. Go lead inspired.